Good afternoon and welcome to Acusensus presentation at NWR's Vantage Point conference. From the company today, we have the founder, Alexander Yannick. And before I pass it over to Alex, I'll just remind you that the format or the presentation is designed to be a little bit shorter than usual, just to provide the ability to ask questions in an interactive format. So you can do that through the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to those post the end of the presentation. Alex, I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Great to be with you all today and to be able to talk to you about Acusensus. So we would best be known as a company that designed and supplied the mobile phone detection cameras that you would see in, for example, New South Wales and Queensland. So this technology was developed by us. It's world first. It's had a real impact on driver behaviour to save lives on the road networks. So I'll take you through a little bit of the journey of the company, the growth strategy that we've got ahead, and some of the solution set that we've got. So from that initial deployment about 4 years ago now in New South Wales, we've broadened out that core technology offering to what's basically a really sophisticated version of a speed camera. So this enforcement camera can simultaneously enforce drivers using their mobile phones, drivers or passengers not wearing seatbelts, the speed of the vehicles as they go past one of our fixed cameras or trailers or cars, and also the speed over distance of cars, so average speed or point-to-point speed. And then we do have a couple of other little more niche functionalities that various clients have asked us for as well. But what's really interesting about the technology that we've developed and deployed on the road network is that when the authority looks to deploy an Acusensus heads-up camera system, they can be addressing the underlying cause of 2 in 3 road fatalities from a single deployment. So some very effective use of assets for our government customers there. Just at a really high level, we're first in the world to provide the mobile phone enforcement camera solutions, and that's something that over time, pretty much every country in the world will need, given its significant prevalence and contributor to road fatalities and road trauma. So in our IPO prospectus of December last year, that market was estimated to be worth about $1.8 billion per annum on that illegal mobile phone use enforcement. And we've been operating these cameras now live for about four years, so it's very much proven technology, and I'll take you through some of the amazing results of this program, which sets us in very good stead for the rest of the world as they look to, should we adopt this technology? And you can see how effective that is from New South Wales. And with that expansion of the solution set into speed and seatbelt and those kinds of capabilities, we're expanding into a much broader market, which is estimated about $7.6 billion. We have 5 major contracts secured to date from Australia. And the important thing to note in our contracts is that they are long-term contracts, so a base period of typically 3 to 5 years, and then with options of 1 or 2 years on top of that. And they're very consistent, so they're monthly service contracts, so quite a consistent revenue profile month to month to month. On the expansion and the growth strategy, we have 2 pillars to that. So one of it is geographic. So obviously we're very well established within Australia, but we have subsidiaries in the United States and the UK, and have been active on the ground there and several years in the US and a little bit less in the UK, and we've got partners through Western Europe as well. So really seeking to expand internationally, and each of those markets, when you look at a per capita basis, per GDP basis, should be larger or even significantly larger than the Australian market. And the other pillar to our growth strategy is on the product side. So we have a really fantastic group of engineers here in research and development team. And so we've got at the moment 3 different lines of research and development activity. One is on that core technology that we've got, and another one is in trying to solve the problem of impaired driving. So drug driving and drink driving, we've got a very novel approach to that nobody else has attempted before. And then the third product line is moving into the work health safety space of taking the technology we've developed into the roadside construction and first responder set like police and ambulance. So just a bit of a snapshot here. We've been paid by over 20 different clients across the world. We've had 10 major pilot programs that have gone through. And so what we seek to do is convert a pilot program into an ongoing, multi-year enforcement contract. And typically to date, most of the pilots that we've seen have converted, and it is a government sales cycle, so it does take some time. But the important thing with having a pilot that's paid is that the government's already receptive to it. They're actually willing to spend money on this to prove out the concept. On the technology side, we have advanced camera technology, we have an advanced cloud backend, but then in the middle there is AI technology. And of course, a really important factor in AI is how much data you put through your system. And for us, we have, at the time of the prospectus, 88 cameras out there live and enforcing every day. And every vehicle that goes past one of our cameras, which is millions of transits per week, is an opportunity for us to further refine and develop our artificial intelligence solution. So let's take a step back as to why would anybody need this technology. Road fatalities have been rising over the last about a decade, really, across nations like ours. And that is a really strange trend when you compare it to decades of declines in fatalities. And it's really coincided with the rise of the smartphone and the addictiveness of that, and the number of minutes that drivers are using a mobile phone while they're behind the wheel, which does keep increasing year on year. And that's one of the major behavioural shifts, one of the major changes in the road network that leads to increased trauma. When New South Wales put in their enforcement camera program, they've seen a 6 times reduction in the number of drivers using a mobile phone. And during that time period, since our program went live, there's been a 20% reduction in road fatalities. The rest of Australia in the same timeframe has gone up by 8%. And so there's really quite a marked difference in New South Wales now, which is just a fantastic testament, I guess, to technology like this making a difference. Technology itself, the sort of flagship product for us is that trailer-based solution that you see on the screen there. That can be deployed across a road network anywhere, anytime. It can screen drivers that are going up to 300 kilometers per hour, take really clear photos through a windshield, and then automatically analyze those photos for the various behaviors such as illegal mobile phone use. The other way that we deploy these kinds of cameras is in fixed installations, so on gantries or on variable message signs or bridges. And the final way is inside vehicles, and that's normally for speed enforcement. So 2 of the 5 contracts that we have are actually speed enforcement contracts. One of them in New South Wales is where the cameras are put inside the vehicles and driven to the locations for just a few hours at a time. And the other speed contract we have is a little bit more advanced, taking that trailer approach that we've got. And that's in Queensland, where the cameras have been live, have been out on the road network for about a month now, and going right throughout the state of Queensland to try and bring down those regional and rural road fatalities and crashes. On the AI side of it, obviously, we've had the opportunity to train this over quite a lot of different data, but something that we're very cognizant of in our programs is privacy. So it's very important to our customers and to the public at large that we absolutely uphold and protect privacy in every possible way. And something really unique in how we train our AI is that we do not hold a big data set of images of drivers to train off. And so we've worked out a way to train our AI without actually holding driver images, which is quite unique. I'm not really aware of this kind of technology being used even in spaces outside of our own one. So a strong adherence to privacy controls. But still a great platform to learn and train off. But then our team of data scientists can keep making our models better and better and more accurate with less human overhead in the review side. So this is just a bit of a snapshot of where we've deployed camera technology, where we've been paid for it. So these are all different pilots through the world. Our approach to market is to go direct to market in Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, and the UK. And so we have subsidiaries in the USA and the UK to help us to service those markets. And so that's where we're capturing the end-to-end value. So where we own all the cameras ourselves, it's just a service model. So we own the cameras, we go and deploy them where the government wants us to. We will certify those cameras, maintain those cameras, move them around as the government wants us to, and then do the first level of human review of the data that comes off. And so then what we're effectively delivering to our clients is confirmed prosecutable evidence of drivers disobeying the road rules. Then for the rest of the world, what we do is we find competent local distributors. And so those distributors will seek to open up the market and then to secure a tender, and where we'll share some services with that distribution partner. So the highest success has been in Western Europe through different pilot deployments through there. And keeping in mind, Simon wanting to keep plenty of time for questions, I might just stop it there and go to the Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Alex. First question. Acusensus is the first player in traffic enforcement space to be cloud native. Can you explain what that means in the industry and why it's important?
Yeah, we were very fortunate, I guess, to be founded in 2018 and be really founded in the cloud. And so we don't have any legacy servers. And the traditional traffic camera enforcement industry or market all has bespoke servers, custom communication networks and things, all things that are very hard to maintain and hard to scale up. And so the first program that we did with New South Wales was the first one that I'm aware of in Australia to actually run the enforcement camera data through a cloud provider. And the advantage there is really, you're actually having a much more secure platform, because you're really standing on the shoulders of giants in the cloud providers like AWS, for example, in terms of the security that they provide through their platform. But for us, we're able to then also spin up new contracts very, very quickly to keep all the data logically separated, but also be able to work out how to train to provide data and insight into the training of the AI models as well. So it's been quite an advantage, and we've seen now, certainly across Australia, all the customers are now absolutely fine with running their camera equipment through cloud infrastructure, which is fantastic to see.
Right, thanks for that. You've clearly had success in Australia, and now you're setting your sights on Western Europe and the US. Do you feel like you've got the right ingredients in the team and the technology to execute on that? And what's your sort of view in terms of the future there?
Yeah, I think we're particularly well placed now in the USA and the UK. I'll deal with each one separately. So I'll go to the UK first. So we've got a really great general manager over in the UK. So Jeff Collins joined us. He's super experienced within the industry. I don't think we could have found somebody better to head up our business there, to be honest. Chairs the ITS Enforcement Committee over there, was part of the founding team bringing in average speed cameras in the UK. And he's been with us for only 6 months, but has really hit the ground running, talked to all the different police forces and drummed up quite a lot of demand, and demand actually much faster than I was expecting, because we've had to quite quickly manufacture additional trailer camera enforcement equipment to go and send over to the UK from our European manufacturing hub. Then over in the USA, we've been in that market for just a bit over 3 years now, and we had to adapt our product, so get the right product market fit. And so over in the US, we felt that automated enforcement cameras was not the way to go because of the cultural and political environment. And instead, what we've done is provide a policing tool. So we call that heads up real time. And that's where the same kind of camera technology we deploy here in Australia is put by the roadside, and then it's done in conjunction with policing. So police officers will wait a couple of 100 meters down the road, and then they'll get alerts from our technology. They're live, basically. the next driver that's coming is using a mobile phone and not wearing a seatbelt, and they can see when they want to effect a traffic stop and pull that driver over. And then the last year, we've been able to work out the funding model for our clients over there for that. So where the state governments, particularly state highway police, as the ultimate users of this technology, where they can apply to the federal government for funds to fund the deployment of our technology. And that's now been proven with a couple of different federal agencies that they will approve that funding path, which is fantastic to see. They need the technology, and this could even be a bit of an inflection point in road safety, because at the moment they write very, very few tickets for mobile phone use or seatbelt use in the United States, because it's just so hard for police to try to enforce it, and our technology changes that.
You mentioned, I think in the last quarterly, that 4 states in the US have applied for federal funding. And what do you expect a bit of a domino effect to occur within the US once it starts to be de-risked, once sort of political landscape, you're not the first state to take it on? Is that the right way of looking at it?
Yeah, definitely. I think anything like this, nobody wants to go first, but everybody's happy to go second. And so we do think that the funding cycle is a good leading indicator for us. So 1 year ago, we had 1 state apply. Now we've got 4 states apply. And, as those programs go live, then the states adjacent will look at them and go, wow, that's really great technology, and we've been able to really make a change. I think the next thing that'll be important for us is to actually measure the change, so that if we can see, okay, through this road corridor, there's been a reduction in heavy vehicle fatalities or crashes or collisions, then that will really drive an impetus for other states to adopt a similar approach.
But basically like New South Wales in terms of the impact there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. New South Wales thankfully went first, and now we see basically every state government and territory government having a plan to adopt this technology now.
Can you talk to the cross-selling opportunities across your product suite offerings and its implication on margin expansions?
Yeah, so what we do, because we have a particular niche in mobile phone enforcement, where we're very uniquely placed there, we try to lead in with customers with the mobile phone enforcement, and then encourage them to adopt more and more of the functionality that the technology is capable of. So as an example, New South Wales went out with mobile phone enforcement. Queensland, who was second in the world for mobile phone, they said, oh, we'll also do seatbelt enforcement. So they became first in the world for seatbelt enforcement. Then as we go across into West Australia, when we did the pilot with West Australia, they said, we want to try it all, mobile phone, seatbelt, speed, average speed. They even looked at helmets of two-wheel operators. And the minister over there just had a great line. He called it the Swiss Army knife of traffic enforcement. And that's a pretty apt description, I think. And so then it makes the solution a lot more complicated, I guess, but where we're quite well placed to supply that technology, and really not many other people are. So that's kind of that key set of functionality. And then as we develop the other sets, they'll also be complementary. So when you look at impaired driving enforcement, if we're able to prove that and deploy it in real life, that will be very much an extension to heads up real time. And so that's also a complementary functionality, and police forces across the world need this kind of technology. They need a solution for impaired driving as well. And then road worker safety. So you look at roadside works, it's one of the highest risk occupations in Australia for deaths and injuries and near misses. And so then we've got the potential to have the protection gear that we're developing, which is called Guardian. But that functionality comes from what's in heads up and the enforcement equipment. And there could very well be synergies with both protection and enforcement in various jurisdictions.
Obviously, it's a global problem. It's getting worse and worse. Can you discuss what existing or emerging competing technologies are out there that can potentially address these problems?
Unfortunately, there's not a lot that's been successful to try and address mobile phone use and seatbelt use. The traditional approach is education and public awareness, and that only goes so far, basically. And it's when you actually get the enforcement in there, the stick in the carrot and stick, that you actually drive the behaviour change. And when you look at the enforcement side, none of the legacy enforcement camera providers are providing this kind of technology. So there's not a lot of equivalent technology out there at the moment. And then potentially when you look at inside the cabin, there are complementary technologies. So driver monitoring systems, that inside the cabin you get a camera, and like what Seeing Machines develops, for example, alerting you, hey, put the phone down, or you're fatigued, or things like that. And those are great technologies, but unfortunately not that many cars, even that you can buy new today, have them. And the average fleet age is 11 years. And so even if every single car had that kind of technology in 11 years' time, still only half the fleet would be protected by that kind of tech. And then on the final side is if Apple or Google can try and do something themselves to solve this problem. But the problem's been there for a decade, and they haven't been able to work out a way to effectively solve this from the device side yet.
Makes sense. And can you just talk to us about the deployment cycle for a new client or a new government? How long does that usually take?
Yeah, so we've basically got a bit of a two-step process. One, for a new government, so not an Australian government. Australian governments know that they need this technology, but for an overseas government, you've got an education piece on this. This is your problem. This is how it can be solved, and this is how it has been solved, and how effective it's been. So you've got to open up the market, and then typically that'll lead to a pilot. So everybody wants to see this kind of thing in their own local jurisdiction. So you conduct that pilot, and that might take a few months, and then the jurisdiction will go away and they'll look at the results from that and go, yes, we do need to actually do this. And that will typically open up a tender process, and we'll respond to the tender, and then you implement the cameras. So it could be as quick as 6 months, or it could be up to 24 months of engagement, really.
Makes sense. And obviously you've been around for 5 years, somewhat commercialised, but probably three of those and already grown revenue over $40 million this year. If you start to be successful in, whether it's Western Europe or US, and people can see that there is such an opportunity out there and it's a growing problem, what's the sort of defensibility around the business in terms of patents and whatnot, and enforceability of those?
Yeah, so we do have patents on our core technology. So here in Australia, we have quite a broad innovation patent on our technology in terms of if you're using a high resolution camera and you're taking a photo to enforce mobile phone use, and that's being analysed by a neural network, which is what sits within any kind of machine learned or AI-based system. That's effectively the patent that we have in the Australian marketplace. In the US, we have a granted patent over there as well. I've forgotten the terminology for the US, but basically a standard patent. And that one is just slightly narrower than the Australian one. And then into the other markets, we have patent applications in train, so still to be evaluated to work out whether that's going to be a granted patent or not. Most notably, of course, the EU is a particular focus market for us. So you've got the patent protection side of it. And then, of course, the other side to being commercially successful is, in out executing other parties as well. And so we're continuing to invest in research and development of our products. Our images today look better than our images 4 years ago. Our AI today is a lot more effective than our AI 4 years ago. And so I guess we've had a 4-year head start on somebody else who might want to try and start that today.
That's a really good summary of the story, Alex. Thanks very much for taking the time to present Acusensus. I know it's close to your heart and obviously very passionate about it. If anyone did want to find out more or give any more questions or feedback, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to organise a one-on-one. But Alex, thanks very much for joining, and thanks to everyone for attending.
Thanks for listening.